All right, hello everybody. We are going to be filling out the prokaryote versus eukaryote notes. We're going to start with the definition of a cell. Yeah, so the definition of a cell. So in this first box, you could put a variety of things, but the definition that I like is the smallest unit of life. I feel like that's really simple and kind of gets to the point, right? So it's the smallest unit of life. Smallest unit of life. The next question says, all cells have, and we're going to list 5 things that all cells have. The first thing that all cells have a cell or a plasma membrane. You can call it whichever, a cell membrane. And within that cell membrane, they have a lot of different things. Every single cell has a cytoplasm. Yes, cytoplasm's just kind of the filling, right? So the fluid filling of the cell. We also have ribosomes. All cells have ribosomes. We've been learning about ribosomes as we learn more about protein synthesis. So those ribosomes are super important in allowing us to do translation, right? So using mRNA to make proteins, and we really need proteins. So every cell can make proteins because they all have ribosomes. We also have that every single cell has DNA. Yes, and we know that DNA, again, is really important when it comes to making proteins. DNA is the instructions for life. And then for the 5th one, you could have a couple of different things here, but typically what we like to talk about all cells having is a cytoskeleton. Cytoskeleton. And that cytoskeleton is just kind of the overall structure, what gives the cell its structure. So those are the 5 things that all cells, no matter what kind they are, have. Okay, then we have prokaryote versus eukaryote. So there are 2 main types of cells we're going to talk about today. The first type that we're going to talk about are prokaryotes. Yes, prokaryotes. And then eukaryotes. So pro means before. This is something you should have from the activity you just did. That's what I'm referring to make sure that I'm saying it the right way. So pro means before. So this is before cells had a nucleus. So these were the first cells to exist. Prokaryotic cells have a few things that we'll want to talk about. Prokaryotic cells do not have a nucleus. They do not have a nucleus because before means, or pro means before nucleus. So they do not have a nucleus. You guys know that nucleus is important to store DNA. So where do they keep their DNA? Well, for prokaryotic cells, they just go ahead and keep their DNA in the cytoplasm. So it's free floating. So I'm going to write that they have free floating DNA. All right. They also have a couple of other things. Obviously, they have all the things that we mentioned up here that all cells have. But prokaryotic cells also are going to have a cell wall. Prokaryotic cells have a cell wall. Not all cells have a cell wall, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Let's see, anything else we are missing? Prokaryotic cells can have different things or different shapes to them, yes? So there are 3 shapes involved. So there is a coccus, which is a sphere shape, and you saw pictures of this in the thing you just did. Spirillum, which is spiral. That's my favorite one to say. Spirillum. not my favorite one to spell, clearly. And then the last one is bacillus, which is rod. Okay, so those are the three shapes of the prokaryotic cells. Yeah, the last thing I want to talk about is the flagellum. So I'm going to go ahead and list that there. Not all prokaryotic cells have a flagellum, but some of them do. And that's used to help move the cell around, yes? That's something that's also on eukaryotic cells. A eukaryotic cell that you might know about that has a flagellum is a sperm cell. So sperm cells have that flagellum to help them get to where they need to go. We'll talk about that in a couple of classes. All right, some examples of prokaryotic cells. Typically, we talk about bacteria cells. Yes, bacteria are prokaryotes. Yes, so if you take a look here in this picture, it has all the things we talked about. It has that free-floating DNA, the cell wall, the flagellum, etc. Yeah, I would call this shape the bacillus. This is the rod shape that we talked about. All right, and then we also have eukaryotic cells. Yes, so U means true. Yes, so U means true, it rhymes. So eukaryotic cells have a true nucleus. Yeah, so there are some things that a eukaryotic cell has. The first and most major one, especially when you would be looking under a microscope, would be a nucleus, yes? And their DNA is housed in that nucleus. You guys know this, but it's a good refresher. Yeah, DNA housed in a nucleus. The eukaryotic cells also are going to have organelles in general. So those organelles are going to be really important here. Prokaryotic cells don't have organelles. You might be like, oh, Miss Mann, a ribosome, that's an organelle. Not really. So a ribosome is its own little thing that is used during a process, whereas organelles usually have multiple layers or membranes to them. They're a lot more complicated than a ribosome. Yeah. So they have a nucleus, they have organelles, they can have a cell wall or no cell wall. I'm going to go ahead and just list a couple of things here that I think are important as far as organelles, and just ignore those bullet points. I don't like how that is. Mitochondria is important. Yeah, they all have mitochondria. They all have Golgi apparatus. Vacuole, we'll talk about that because it's a little different between plants and animals. They do have ribosomes as well. Yeah. I'm not going to list that under organelle. Sorry, my bad. Boom. Undo. Shoop. There we go. Trying to remember what I'm forgetting. Vesicles. Oh, there we go. Endoplasmic reticulum. I knew I was missing a big one. Endoplasmic reticulum. Sweet. Okay. So the last thing we need to do here is we need to compare and contrast plant and animal cells. So plant cells have three things that animal cells do not. So plant cells have a cell wall. That's what's going to keep the cell, the plant cell, rigid and keep its kind of square shape. If you look under a microscope, and there were microscopic images in the activity you just did, you'll see that plant cells are a little more brick-shaped. They kind of look like layers or lines of bricks, whereas animal cells are more circular. Plant cells also have a chloroplast. Yes. Those are special organelles that are responsible for doing photosynthesis. So those chloroplasts are going to take sunlight and convert it into sugar or glucose. Yeah. And the last thing that they have is one large central vacuole. And a vacuole is important for storing things, specifically water in plant cells. So every plant cell has just one really big vacuole. Yeah, you can see that. It's the blue thing in the picture below. Animal cells are a little different. They do not have a cell wall. and they do not have chloroplasts. Instead, they have some other things. So they have lysosomes, which are part of digestion. Yeah, cell digestion, not digestion in general in your body, but they help break down things that the body does not, or the cell does not need anymore. There is no cell wall, so I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. Let me bring that down. I'm going to put no cell wall. It doesn't really matter where you put it. I'm just particular. I like how they match up here, but not a big deal. And then also they have several small vacuoles, so many small vacuoles. Like I said, those vacuoles are important for storage, but in animal cells, they have a lot of different small ones, unlike plant cells where it's one big one. So hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm kind of just scrolling through, making sure that you have everything you need here. I think you should be fine. If you did your activity from before, I am going to, if you're still listening, I'm going to give you the answers to the end part where you're looking at prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, the one about the whole movie and everything. So you should have gotten for this, the amoeba cell, you can definitely see a nucleus there. So there's a cell membrane, there's cytoplasm, there's a nucleus, so it's a eukaryote, right? The paramecium, you can also see that there are some dots in there and some organelles and things, so you know that that must be a eukaryote as well. It's got the cell membrane and the cytoplasm and the nucleus, so it is a eukaryote. E. coli is really, really tiny, and that usually is a great indicator of a prokaryotic cell. You can tell that there are many cells in that picture. There are cell membranes around each of them and cytoplasm, but you can't really tell if there's a nucleus or not, and so I would say no for nucleus, which would tell you that E. coli is a prokaryote. E. coli is also a type of bacteria, so that's kind of a giveaway. And then skeletal muscle, you can see there, those are kind of funky cells, but you can see those dark spots in there are nuclei. So that skeletal muscle is a eukaryotic cell. So you should have explained that the E. coli cell would be the best one to play a prokaryote in this new movie. And you should have done that in like a claim, evidence, reasoning format. So hopefully that was helpful. Have a great day.